Good day, everyone. We are the Group 7 and we are assigned to discuss a holistic understanding of peace and violence. So come and let's listen to our report. A new way of thinking about peace is so important today. The power of our own understanding and views of peace, both as a condition and as a value, cannot be underestimated. It is because our ideas shape our feelings and actions, as well as how we live and how we relate with others. For this reason, Fritjof Capra, in his widely acclaimed book, The Turning Point, has argued for the need for a change in thinking about both concepts and values, a necessary first step to solve our many problems today, according to Capra 1982. That means that conflicts are avoided via peace education, which also helps to foster peaceful conditions worldwide. The most important thing in globe is due to these activities that foster peace and principles like respect for human rights, freedom and confidence encourage conflict resolution. So as we all know no, ang peace grabe jud kay ni siya ka importante sa muta diri sa ato ang world nga grabe gid ka discrimination, grabe ka gubot o grabe ang mga kanang inequality samot na sa kanang politics and gender equality. And there is also a battered wife and a discrimination against women and oppressing them. So, secular views or concepts of peace and violence. Early secular writings on the subject of peace indicate that the peace was defined as merely the absence of war or direct violence. This negative formulation was first given by Hugo Grotius in 1625 or according to Dobroshilsky 1987. The simplest and most widespread understanding of peace was that the absence of death and destruction as a result of war, physical direct violence, and understanding that was used as the initial point of departure in peace research. So it concerns for the protection of individuals and communities from both the direct threat of physical violence and indirect threats that result from poverty and other forms of social, economic, or political inequalities, as well as natural disasters and disease. As late as 1966, the noted French thinker Raymond Aron defined peace narrowly as a condition of more or less lasting suspension of violent modes of rivalry between political units, according to Barash 1999. Like many others who preceded him, he defined peace as the absence of war or other direct forms of organized violence. So, according to him, the peace though is the non-existence of war, or it is the form of other direct of organized violence. However, an alternative view started to emerge beginning with the late 1960s. Attention started to shift from direct to indirect or structural violence. For example, ways in which people suffer from violence built into a society via its social, political, and economic system. According to Hicks, 1987, it was realized that it was not only war and direct violence that caused death and disfigurement. Structural violence is led to death and suffering because of the conditions that resulted from it: extreme poverty, starvation, avoidable diseases, discrimination against minority groups, and denial of human rights. It was further realized that a world marked by sad conditions is a world devoid of peace and human security. It breeds an anger and generates tension leading to armed conflict and war. In this connection, Johann Galtung, a renowned peace theorist and researcher, argues that structural violence occurs when the wealth of affluent nations, or individuals is based on the labor and essential resources drawn from nations, groups, and individuals who, as consequences, are required to live diminished lives and deprivation, according to Monez 1973. So it means that the multiple factors that may possibly be summed up as societal conditions was caused though by structural violence. This involves prejudice held by a violent group of people, a pattern of prejudice, and an effort cover up to forget past wrongs the cause of individuals who have been harmed. Next, toward a holistic concept of peace and violence. Over the past many years, peace workers have increasingly challenged this conventional view of peace and have declared that peace is not simply a lack of war or nonviolence. Peace means eradication of all facets and injustice, according to Cheng and Kurtz, 1998. There is a consensus that we need to have comprehensive view of peace if we are to move toward a genuine peace culture. So, society can only flourish and grow if there is a peace. Peace is very helpful towards our society. So, if there is no peace and harmony, we'll not be able to achieve political strength, economic stability, or cultural development. Furthermore, we must first create peace inside ourselves before we can create peace to the society. And we can also communicate peace to others. Johann Galtung explains that the peace is the absence of violence, not only personal or direct, but also structural and indirect. The manifestations of personal or direct violence and the presence of social justice. For brevity, he prefers the formulations absence of violence and presence of social justice, thinking of a former as one that is not positively defined condition has called it negative peace, whereas the latter is a positively defined condition, egalitarian distribution of power and resources, and has called it positive peace. So, here states that positive peace is very helpful because, for example, if you are aiming to have a peaceful workplace, you have to educate and value structuring so that you can aim peace inside your workplace or inside the classroom. Indeed, peace researchers and educators now seem satisfied to split the concept of peace in two, stating that the meaning of peace can be captured by the idea of negative peace and the idea of positive peace. The concept of peace in two, stating the meaning can be captured by the negative peace and the idea of positive peace. Negative peace refers to the absence of war or physical and direct violence, while positive peace refers to the presence of just and non-exploitative relationships as well as human and ecological well-being such that the root causes of conflict are diminished. So it states daw nga ang peace was divided into two, which is the negative peace and the positive peace. Ang negative peace was refers sa non-existence of war or physical or direct violence, while the positive peace was the good impact of peace in the society and aiming to have peaceful life in the community. The non-exploitative relationships mentioned above refer not only to the relationships between humans, but also to those between humans and nature. Peace with nature is considered the foundation for positive peace, according to Miche, 1987. It is because the earth is ultimately the source of our survival, physical sustenance, health, and wealth. It is not possible to provide for human survival if nature's capacity to renew itself is seriously impaired. It must also remember that human behavior is intimately related to the availability of basic resources, according to Barnaby, 1989. When a shortage of resources threatens lifestyles or life itself, rivalry for resources can lead to aggression and violent conflict. So, it means na peace is not only for human but also for earth and nature, because 'di ba we are living in our world, so dapat mohatag jud ta og peaceful sa ato ang kanang mga resources, kung asa tagapuyo, kung asa ta nangita og trabaho, asa ta nagkuha og paningabuhi, dapat ato pud ang ambingan ang ato ang kagalingong kalibutan, kay diha man ta nagkuha og life survival. So kung maguba ang ato ang kalibutan, syempre guba sa ang ato ang lifestyle. So we should give peaceful in our world to sustain our life and sustain our mother nature.
Betty Riordan, a peace educator who has made significant contributions to the field, defines violence as humanly inflicted harm. It is a succinct description of what constitutes violence contrast to other types of harms that results from natural causes. So there are 5 levels of peace. First one is personal peace. It includes self-respect and the harmony of self. Buot pasabot, if naa kay personal peace, you can manage stress, makalit-go ka sa mga negative emotions, and makasulbad ka sa imuhang mga problems through positive ways. Second, interpersonal peace. It recognizes the inherent value and dignity of every person, and it strives to create an environment where individuals feel heard, understood, and valued. Example, if you have a friend nga naay problem sa iyang family, then ikaw is andam ka maminaw niya o musabot, aron sad magpakita nimo nga you give worth of your friend. Make and give advices para sa imuhang friend nga makuhaan iyang problema. Third, intergroup or social peace. It refers to a state of harmony, cooperation, and positive relations between different social groups or communities. Example for this kay ang Harmonyville, mauni ang annual multicultural festival nga mag-celebrate sa mga heritage sa different communities. Naay mga tawo nga taga-lain-laing lugar nga mudong then mo showcase sa ilahang culture, traditions, musics, foods, and etc. Through the festival, ang mga tao nga nakakita is maka-learn about sa lain cultures and maka-appreciate sa mga kalahian sa atong mga cultures and traditions. Fourth is global peace. It includes respect for other nations. For example, if you want to travel in India or Saudi Arabia, you must have to respect their cultures and traditions. For example, in India, they make their foods by their hands, eating their foods by their hands, so you must have to give respect for that. And in Saudi Arabia, magsuot sila mga whole clothes nga ang mata ray dapat makita. So, you must have to respect for that. Kay kung dili ka mo sunod o mo respeto sa ilahang policy, na ay possibility nga your life will be in harm or in danger. Lastly is peace between humans and earth and beyond. When we talk about peace between humans and earth and beyond, we are referring to a harmonious and sustainable relationship between humanity and the planet we inhabit, as well as our interactions with the broader universe. For example, sa climate stewardship, governments, communities, and individuals have united to address climate change. They have implemented comprehensive strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, promote energy efficiency, and transition to renewable energy. So, mauka na ang 5 levels of peace. So, there are various forms of violence, 2 of which are mentioned in the earlier discussion: physical or direct violence and structural violence. Other forms of violence are described in the conceptual map of violence that was done by Tui Sui Hin and Virginia Kawagas, 1987. It is a typology that indicates various types of or forms of violence, and some examples or illustrations of each type in the personal, interpersonal, social, and global levels. So, so it will be discussed later on kay magpakita ta og table sa about sa typology ay sa conceptual map of violence ni Kuan Tuwiswihin and Virginia Kawagas. So Birgit Brock Otney 1989 notes that direct violence can be categorized as organized or unorganized. Organized violence refers to war, which she describes as organized, and collective violence, which occurs between states or within a state. Unorganized violence includes wife battering, rape, child abuse, and street crime. She also notes that indirect violence can either shorten lifespan or reduce quality of life. She cited economic structures that lead to unequal chances as well as repressions of the freedom of speech and of choice and the repressions of one's fulfillment as features of indirect violence. So buot pasabot no nga according niya kanang ni Birgit Brock Otney, she note that direct violence can be categorized as organized and unorganized. So buot pasabot ang organized nagrefer siya sa mga war like kadtong mga world war nga nahitabo diri sa atuang country. Then ang unorganized is nagrefer siya sa wife battering, rape, child abuse, and street crime or other mga violence no. Nag-ingon sad siya nga ang indirect violence is makapa-shorten jud sa kinabuhi sa usa ka tawo. And now let's move on to the conceptual map formulated by Tuwiswihin and Virginia Kawagas. So as you can see in the table na ay level form of violence, personal, interpersonal, community, and national, and lastly kay global. So, sa level form of violence na bilong ang direct or physical, sa personal na bilong sad ang suicide and drug abuse, sa interpersonal community na bilong ang domestic violence and violent crimes, sa national kay national inequalities, poverty, and hunger, and then lastly kay sa global kay conventional war, nuclear war, human rights abuses, and then second is na ay nabilong ang structural or economic and political sa level form of violence. Sa personal kay powerlessness, interpersonal community kay local inequalities, poverty, and hunger. Sa national nabilong ang national inequalities, poverty ug hunger. Sa global kay global inequalities, poverty, and hunger. And then third kay cultural or psychological na belong siya sa level form of violence. Then sa personal kay alienation, low self-esteem, and anxiety. Sa interpersonal community, prejudice or enemy images, cultural domination, racism, sexism, religious intolerance. Sa national kay prejudice or enemy, same gihapon sa interpersonal community. And lastly kay global, same ra gihapon sa interpersonal community, national, and national. And then lastly kay sa level form of violence na bilong ang ecological, sa personal na bilong ang overconsumption, and then sa interpersonal community na bilong ang overconsumption, pollution, and then sa national kay na bilong ang overconsumption, pollution, chemical and biological warfare, nuclear power, radiation. And lastly kay na bilong ang overconsumption, pollution, chemical and biological warfare, nuclear power, radiation. So same ra sa national ang global. So mao ka na ang conceptual map nga gihimo ni Tuwiswihin and Virginia Kawagas. And that will be all for my discussion. Thank you for listening.
A culture of peace. The UNESCO preamble tells us that since war begins in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that defenses of peace must be constructed. In keeping with its mission, UNESCO began to culture of peace program and saw the potential of program to become a global movement. The Declaration on a Culture of Peace were eventually adopted by United Nations General Assembly in 1999. So, what is culture of peace? The Declaration or the UN 1998 state that a culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, traditions, modes of behavior, and ways of life that reflect and inspire. So, a culture of peace refers to society or community that values and promotes peaceful relationships, cooperation, and nonviolent conflict resolution. It is a way of life that is built on a set of shared values, attitudes, and behaviors that prioritize peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding. So, this culture is characterized by respect for human rights, social justice, equality, environmental sustainability, and it is a culture that inspires people to work towards creating a peaceful world free from violence, discrimination, and oppression. So the UN Declaration of 1998 emphasizes the importance of cultivating a culture of peace as a means of promoting sustainable development, social progress, and human dignity. So first is respect for life and for all human rights. So respect for life and for all human rights. Respect for life and for all human rights means acknowledging the inherent value and dignity of every human being, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. It means recognizing that every person has the right to live their life without fear of discrimination, violence, or oppression. So the second one is rejection of violence in all its forms and commitment to the prevention of violent conflict by tackling their root causes through dialogue and negotiation. So rejection of violence in all its forms and commitment to the prevention of violent conflict by tackling the root causes through dialogue and negotiation. So this statement means that violence is not an acceptable solution to any conflict and that effort should be made to prevent violent conflicts from occurring. So this can be achieved by identifying and addressing the underlying causes of the conflict through peaceful means such as dialogue and negotiation. By doing so, it is possible to resolve conflicts without resorting to violence, which can lead to further harm and damage. The rejection of violence in all its forms also implies a commitment to promoting peace and non-violent solution to conflicts. So the third one is commitment to full participation in the process of equitably meeting the needs of present and future generations. Commitment to full participation in the process of equitably meeting the needs of present and future generations. This statement is about taking responsibility for ensuring that the needs of both present and future generations are met in a fair and just way. It means being fully committed to actively participating in the process of finding solutions that will benefit everyone and not just a select few. Therefore, it is important to work together to ensure that we live a world that is just sustainable for those who come after us. So the fourth one is the promotion of equal rights and opportunities of women and men. So promotion of equal rights and opportunities of women and men. So this statement means that there should be effort made to ensure that women and men had the same rights and opportunities in all aspects of life, including education, employment, politics, and social interactions. This includes eliminating gender-based discrimination and ensuring that women have equal access to resources and opportunities such as healthcare, education, and employment. So it is also means of promoting gender equality and leadership and decision-making roles, and encouraging men to support and advocate for the empowerment of women. Ultimately, the goal is to create a society where both women and men have equal opportunities to succeed and reach their full potential. So next is recognition of the right of everyone to freedom of expression, opinion, and information. Recognition of the right of everyone to freedom of expression, opinion, and information. So these statements means that every individual has the right to express their thought and ideas freely without any fear of censorship or punishment. They also have the right to access and share information without any restrictions or barriers. So this right is essential for the promotion of democracy, transparency, and accountability in society. It allows individuals to participate in public debates, express their dissenting opinions, and hold those in power accountable. So, however, this right also comes with a certain responsibilities, such as respecting the rights and dignity of others and not spreading hate speech or misinformation. So the last one is devotion to principles of freedom, justice, democracy, tolerance, solidarity, cooperation, pluralism, cultural diversity, dialogue, and understanding between nations, between ethnic, religious, and cultural and other groups, and between individuals. So devotion to principles of freedom, justice, democracy, tolerance, solidarity, cooperation, pluralism, cultural diversity, dialogue, and understanding between nations, between ethnic, religious, and cultural and other groups, and between individuals. The statement refers to a set of values and beliefs that are essential for creating a just and inclusive society. Devotion to principles of freedom means valuing individual liberty and the right to make choices without interference. Justice refers to the fair and impartial treatment of all individuals, regardless of their background or status. Democracy means that the people have a say in how they are governed and that power is distributed fairly. Tolerance and solidarity means accepting and respecting differences among people and working together to achieve common goals. Cooperation and pluralism refer to importance of collaboration and diversity in creating a vibrant and thriving society. So cultural diversity recognizes the richness and value of different cultural traditions and perspectives. So dialogues and understanding between nation, groups, and individuals are essential for building trust and creating a peaceful and harmonious world. Overall, the statement emphasizes that the importance of valuing and promoting human rights, equality, and mutual respect. A Philippine framework toward a culture of peace. In the Philippines, a culture of peace framework has been developed out of the experiences and reflections of peace advocates in the country. The figure below is a graphic representation of this framework and was called from the work of an active Mindanao peace advocate Antonio G. Lidisma or SG Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro or the Lidismo 2007. In the Philippines, a culture of peace framework has been developed out of experiences and reflections of peace advocates in the country. So these statements means that in the Philippines, there is no framework or a set of guidelines for promoting peace that has been created by individuals who have been actively advocating for peace in the country. So this framework has been developed based on their experiences and reflections on what has worked and what has not worked in their efforts to promote peace. It is a collective effort to create a culture of peace in the Philippines that is grounded in the local context and informed by the experiences of those who have been working toward this goal. In the following figures, 6 dimensions and 6 values are indicated. The categories are meant to be exhaustive, but they represent the major concerns and needed values for the building of a culture of peace in the Philippines. To move closer to the goal of establishing a peace culture. So here is the figure, which is promoting a culture of peace of 6 dimension and operative values. So it consists of three continuum: the social continuum, political continuum, and the economic continuum. So as we can see, the middle or the center of the graphic is a culture of peace. So next is the values, where we can see the spirituality, justice, compassion, dialogue, active non-violence, and stewardships. And after that are the 6 dimension, where is the personal and family integrity, human rights and democracy, poverty eradication, intercultural understanding, solidarity, disarmament and cessation of hostilities, and environmental protection. So these are the major kaning mga in personal and family integrity, human rights and democracy. These are the major concern that needed values for the culture of peace in the Philippines. So it is important that personal and family integrity is being protected and promoted. So keeping the self and the family whole in a view of the various forms of brokenness that surrounded them. It is a foundation of a piece of culture. Respect for human dignity, fundamental freedom, democratic participation, the fulfillment of basic needs, and economic equity are also major concerns in the framework, because the frame mentions are roots of peace. Likewise, intercultural understanding or the acceptance and respect for the different other, as well as caring for the environment, contribute to a peace. In a view of continuing threat of armed conflicts in the country, the cessation of armed hostilities is a major concern, as well as a reallocation of scarce resources from arms to farms, or from buying stockpiling weapons to undertaking activities that would redound to the people benefits. The values that aptly correspond to these dimensions are spiritually justice, compassion, dialogue, active nonviolence, and stewardship of sense of kinship with the earth. These values are explained in a greater detail in succeeding chapters.
Cultural traditions with a broad concept of peace. A new way of thinking about peace is so important today. The power of our own understanding and views of peace, both as a condition as a value, cannot be underestimated. It is because our ideas shape our feelings and our actions, as well as how we live and how we relate it with others. Indeed, peace researchers and educators now seem satisfied to split the concept of peace in two, stating that the meaning of peace can be captured by the idea of a negative peace and the idea of a positive peace. Negative peace refers to the absence of war or physical direct violence, while positive peace refers to the presence of just a non-exploitation relationship, as well as human and ecological well-being, such that the root causes of conflicts are diminished.